Have you ever met someone whose presence quietly unsettled you, without them saying a single word? Because what happens next is rarely what we expect. Most people imagine that encountering someone deeply awake will feel comforting, even inspiring. We picture calm wisdom, gentle reassurance, and a sense of being uplifted. We assume their presence will validate our journey, confirm that we're doing it right, and gently guide us forward. But reality often tells a different story. Instead of peace, there is discomfort. Instead of affirmation, there is exposure. Instead of feeling elevated, you may feel strangely unsteady. This confusion arises because true awareness does not soothe the ego. It reveals it. When you encounter someone whose consciousness is more integrated than your own, something subtle but powerful happens inside you. You may not be able to name it, but you feel it, a quiet recognition. A sense that this person is seeing from a place you haven't fully reached yet. And that recognition can be deeply unsettling. Their presence may pull you into sharper awareness. You might feel more alert, more self-conscious, more seen, not judged, but noticed, as if the usual masks you wear suddenly stop working. For most of us, being truly seen is uncomfortable. We're used to hiding behind role, opinions, achievements, and even spiritual identities. We perform who we think we are, and the world usually plays along. But in the presence of someone genuinely awake, these performances become transparent. You realize, often without words, that pretending no longer works. And that's when the tension begins. You may feel defensive without knowing why. You may feel the urge to explain yours. You may want to prove that you too understand life, consciousness, truth, or the opposite happens. Suddenly feel small, inadequate, as if the progress you believed you'd made was only partial, as if you've been rehearsing awakening rather than living it. Both reactions come from the same place, the ego sensing danger. Awareness doesn't attack the ego, but the ego experiences clarity as a threat, not because something is being taken from you, but because something false is being exposed. This is why such encounters feel destabilizing. Nothing is done to you. No criticism is spoken. No judgment is passed. And yet, something inside you is undeniably shaken. Clarity doesn't harm the ego. It reveals it. What you're experiencing isn't failure. It's contact. Contact with a lev. L of consciousness that quietly asks a difficult question. What in you is still hiding? And this is only the beginning. Because what surfaces next is even harder to face. In the next chapter, we'll explore how these encounters expose the parts of us we've avoided, and why that exposure may be the greatest gift of all. What if the discomfort you feel isn't a problem, but a mirror showing you something unfinished? Because this is where the encounter turns deeply personal. When you're near someone more awake than you, it's not their wisdom that affects you first, it's what awakens inside you. Old habits, hidden reactions, patterns you thought you had already outgrown. Their clarity doesn't point outward, it turns the light inward. Suddenly, parts of you that once stayed in the background step forward, unexamined fears, subtle insecurities, the need to be right, the urge to appear knowledgeable, the quiet craving to be admired or respected. And none of this is deliberate. The more conscious person doesn't expose you intentionally. They don't challenge you. They don't confront you. Their presence alone is enough, like a well-lit room revealing dust you didn't know was there. You may notice yourself becoming defensive, wanting to speak more, wanting to demonstrate insight, wanting to show that you understand, that you belong at this level too. Or you may withdraw completely. You feel smaller, quieter, doubt creeps in. The confidence you once felt about your progress suddenly feels fragile. almost borrowed. Both reactions are signals, not failures. They reveal wow. Re-identity still clings to awakening as an achievement instead of a reality. This is where many people misunderstand what's happening. They assume the discomfort means something is wrong, that the encounter was negative, that the other person is intimidating, arrogant, or somehow unsettling by nature. But the truth is simpler and harder. Nothing new has been created. What you're seeing was there. The encounter simply removed the camouflage. What unsettles you often shows what still seeks integration. This is why such meetings can feel emotionally intense. Your remaining unconsciousness becomes impossible to ignore, not because it grows stronger, but because it becomes visible. And visibility changes everything. For the ego, this feels like a threat. Its story begins to ACK. The identity of someone who knows or someone who has arrived starts to feel unstable. And when identity feels threatened, it reacts. You might feel competitive. You might feel inferior. You might feel the urge to distance yourself. All of these are protective movements, ways to restore balance without having to change. But here's the quiet truth. Most people miss. This exposure is not punishment. It's an invitation to notice what remains unseen, to observe reactions without defending them, to let awareness do what it naturally does, illuminate. If you stay present instead of resisting, something shifts. The discomfort stops feeling personal. It becomes informative. You begin to realize awakening isn't about eliminating the ego. It's about seeing it clearer. And in the next chapter, that clarity creates an even deeper rupture. When everything you thought you understood starts to collapse, what if the moment you feel most knowledgeable is the moment understanding slips away? Because this is where the ground truly starts to move. After the initial discomfort, something more destabilizing appears. It's not emotional this time, it's intellectual. Conceptual. The ideas you once relied on begin to feel thin in the presence of someone genuinely awake. Your explanations start to sound rehearsed. Your insights feel familiar but strangely lifeless. You realize that what you've been carrying isn't lived truth, but descriptions of it, and the difference becomes impossible to ignore. You may have read countless books, studied traditions, memories, ed frameworks. You might speak fluently about presence, awareness, or non-duality. You might even teach these ideas to others. But now you're faced with someone who doesn't explain awareness, they embody it. And suddenly, your knowledge feels like a map compared to the territory. It's not that your understanding is wrong, it's that it's incomplete. This realization can sting because much of your identity may be built around being someone who gets it, someone insightful, someone advanced, someone who knows the language of awakening. And now that language feels hollow. You begin to sense the gap between knowing about truth and living as truth, between describing clarity and resting inside it. Concepts explain reality, but they are never the reality. This gap can feel humiliating, publicly but privately, quietly. You realize that much of what you called awakening was actually interpretation, thought layered on experience, understanding layered on mystery. And here's the uncomfortable part. No amount of explanation can close this gap. The more you try to think your way forward, the wider it seems to become, because what's missing cannot be grasped. This is where many people panic. They double down on study. They collect more teachings. They refine their language. They search for better explanations. But the presence of someone more awake reveals a hard truth. Awareness doesn't deepen through accumulation. It deepens through surrender. When your concepts begin to collapse, it's not a failure, it's a necessary breakdown. The mind has reached its limit. Stopping, something unfamiliar appears. Not certainty, not clarity, but openness. A willingness to not know. This is the doorway most people avoid, because stepping through it means letting go of being someone who understands. Yet this is precisely where real understanding begins. In the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when the ego responds to this collapse, and ways it tries to protect itself. When your inner story starts collapsing, the ego doesn't disappear. It chooses a strategy, and it usually chooses one of two extremes. Once your ideas about awakening begin to crack, the ego scrambles to regain control. It senses instability, and instability feels dangerous, so it moves fast, often without your awareness. The first strategy is elevation. You begin to place the other person far above yourself. You turn them into something extraordinary, a master, a guide, someone fundamentally different from you. This feels respectful, but it creates distance. By idealizing them, you protect yourself from comparison. If they are special, then the gap between you is no longer threatening. It's justified. You don't have to face what their presence revere. LS about you. The ego stays intact, just smaller and obedient instead of confident. The second strategy is rejection. Instead of elevating them, you begin to look for flaws, subtle ones at first. Something they said that felt off. A behavior that didn't match your idea of awakening. A tone that felt human instead of enlightened. And slowly, doubt grows. You convince yourself they're not really more awake, that your initial reaction was exaggerated, that you understand things they don't. This restores balance, but at a cost. Both strategies do the same thing. They prevent learning. Whether you place someone on a pedestal or push them off it, you avoid staying with the rawness of the encounter. You avoid facing the mirror they hold up to you. Distance protects the ego from transformat. The uncomfortable truth is this: neither admiration nor dismissal requires change. Staying present does, because when you don't escape into extreme, something else happens. You're left with the gap, the quiet space between where you are and what you've glimpsed. And that space is deeply uncomfortable. There's no role to hide behind, no identity to perform, no certainty to lean on. J. Awareness meeting itself and noticing what's unfinished. This is why so few people remain open in these moments. The ego would rather shrink or attack than dissolve. But if you resist both urges, if you neither worship nor reject, you enter unfamiliar territory. Humility without submission, confidence without certainty, curiosity without control. And something begins to loosen. In the next T chapter, we'll explore the quiet invitation hidden beneath all of this discomfort. The invitation to let an old version of yourself fall away. What if the real invitation isn't to learn more, but to release who you think you are? Because this is the moment everything becomes serious. Beneath the discomfort, beneath the collapsing ideas, beneath the ego's defenses, there is a silent invitation. It isn't spoken, it isn't explained, but it's felt. An invitation to let go, not of beliefs alone, but of identity. When you encounter someone more awake, what's truly challenged is not your knowledge, but your attachment to being someone who knows. Your spiritual image, your quiet pride in understanding, your sense of having progressed. This is why it feels like a kind of death, not physical, psychological. The ego, especially the spiritual ego, doesn't want to die. It has invested years in becoming refined, conscious, aware. Letting that go feels like erasing progress, like stepping backward. So resistance arises. You may cling to your current self-image, you may subtly withdraw, you may reinterpret the encounter in ways that preserve your story, and nothing forces you to do otherwise. Say, the invitation can be declined. Most people decline it, quietly, politely. without even realizing a choice was made. But if you stay with it, if you don't turn away, something remarkable happens. You allow yourself to not know, to feel unformed, to stand without a label. And this is where space opens. When the effort to be awakened relaxes, awareness stops being a goal and becomes a ground. You're no longer trying to arrive somewhere. You're simply present with what is. Awakening begins when the performance ends. This moment feels vulnerable, exposed, even frightening, because the structures you relied on are no longer holding you up, but they aren't needed anymore. The ego interprets this as loss, but something deeper recognizes it as freedom. You're no longer maintaining an image, no longer defending a position, no longer carrying the burden of being advanced. You've become available for insight that isn't conceptual, for clarity that isn't constructed, for truth that isn't owned. This is not something you achieve, it's something you allow. And it changes how everything unfolds from here. Because when the old self loosens its grip, awareness finally moves without resistance. In the next chapter, we'll explore a subtle phenomenon that sometimes emerges in this openness, something that cannot be taught, only transmitted. What if the deepest shift happens without instruction, effort, or even understanding? Because not everything meaningful arrives through words. Sometimes, after the ego loosens and defenses soften, something unexpected occurs, nothing dramatic, no revelation, no teaching. And yet you are not the same afterward. You might sit beside this person in silence, or speak about ordinary things, or share a brief moment with no depth at all. And still something settles inside you, a quiet realignment. Information being passed. It's resonance, like one instrument gently bringing another into tune, not through force, but through presence. The quality of awareness the other person embodies creates a field, and within that field, your own awareness recognizes something familiar, not new, remembered. This shift doesn't feel like learning. It feels like relaxing into something you had forgotten you knew. Patterns soften, reactivity loosens. Clarity arrives without explanation. This is why it's so difficult to describe. Language can't capture it because nothing is added, something is removed. Effort, tension, seeking. Presence teaches without saying a word. But this doesn't always happen, and that's important. This resonance requires openness. If you're defended, analyzing, or trying to extract something from the encounter, nothing passes. Awareness cannot move where it's been. This isn't something the other person does to you. It's something that happens through you. When resistance drops, you don't become like them. You don't absorb their awareness. You simply recognize your own more clearly than before. And when this happens, it quietly rearranges things. You may notice later that certain reactions no longer arise as strongly, that a familiar strew. Gel has lost intensity, that a question you carried feels less urgent. No insight explains why, it just is. This can feel unsettling because the mind wants reasons. It wants steps, it wants credit. But awareness doesn't work that way. It unfolds when allowed. And this unfolding often changes how you relate to everything you thought was necessary for awakening, especially practice in Tej. Next chapter, we'll explore how meeting someone more awake can quietly dismantle your relationship with effort, discipline, and spiritual striving. What if the very practices meant to free you are quietly keeping you stuck? Because this realization can be deeply unsettling. After encountering someone more awake, you may begin to notice something uncomfortable. Their way of being doesn't seem connected to effort in the way yours is. You meditate, you discipline yourself, you follow methods, and yet what they embody appears effortless. This doesn't mean they never practiced. It means practice no longer defines them. For someone who has invested years into techniques, routines, and spiritual discipline, this recognition can feel like betrayal. If effort isn't the key, then what? All the effort been for? This question can shake your foundation. You may feel disoriented, confused, even resentful. The framework that once gave structure to your journey begins to wobble. But here's the subtle truth. Practice doesn't fail you. Attachment to practice does. Practice becomes a problem when it turns into identity, when it becomes a way to measure progress, when it becomes a strategy to become something else. Effort refines the ego before it releases it. This is why the more awakened person doesn't invalidate your discipline. Their presence simply reveals that awakening isn't produced, it's uncovered. And uncovering requires stopping, not abandoning practice, but changing your relationship to it. Practice stops being a ladder, stops being a project, stops being a way to arrive somewhere. Instead, it becomes expression. You don't meditate to become present. You meditate because presence is already here. This shift is subtle but transformative. When effort relaxes, sincerity deepens. When striving softens, awareness breathes. And something else appears, a recognition that awakening is not a future achievement, but a current reality, obscured by consta. This doesn't make practice meaningless, it makes it honest. It prepares the ground, but it cannot produce the fruit. And when this is seen, the pressure lifts. In the next chapter, we'll explore how this realization expands your sense of the journey itself, revealing how vast the territory of awakening truly is. What if the most humbling discovery is also the most liberating one? Because this realization changes how you carry the journey. After meeting someone more awake, you may begin to sense the scale of what lies beyond you. What once felt like progress now feels like a beginning. What once seemed deep now appears partial. At first, this can feel discouraging. You thought you were close. You thought you understood. You thought the summit was near, and suddenly, the horizon expands. You see how much more is possible. Not because someone told you, but because you've felt it. You've encountered a depth of being that extends far beyond your current frame. This can bruise the ego. It whispers, maybe you haven't gone as far as you believed, but something unexpected follows, relief. If the path is vast, then you don't have to pretend you've arrived. You don't have to defend your position. You don't have to maintain the image of someone who's almost done. Not arriving frees you to walk honestly. This is where humility transforms into freedom. You're allowed to be a beginner again, allowed to not know, allowed to explore without performing. The burden of being advanced dissolves. Curiosity returns. Wonder replaces pressure. This is why such encounters are paradoxical. They show you how little you know and give you permission to enjoy not knowing. The path stops being a race, stops being a comparison, stops being about status. It becomes alive again. And from this openness, something else arises, choice. Because once you see what's possible, you can't unknow it. You can either ignore the glimpse or let it reshape how you live. The recognition doesn't force change, but it makes complacency uncomfortable. This is where many people turn outward again, seeking teachers, structures, or roles to manage the discomfort. Which brings us to the next turning point. In the final chapter, we'll explore the subtle trap of turning awakening into relationship, and the quiet responsibility that remains entirely your own. What if? The real change begins after the encounter is already over, because this is what many people don't expect. After meeting someone more awake, life may look the same on the surface. No dramatic shift, no instant clarity, no visible transformation. And yet, something has changed. You've seen something you cannot unsee. The world feels slightly different now. Your old certainties don't settle easily. The stories you told yourself about who you are and where you stand no longer fully convince you. A quiet restlessness appears, not dissatisfaction, but discontent with pretending. This is the subtle aftermath of contact. You may try to dismiss it, tell yourself it was nothing special. Convince yourself that you're fine where you are, that there's no need to go further. Underneath those thoughts, something remains awake, a knowing, once seen, truth refuses to be forgotten. This is where responsibility enters. Not responsibility to the other person, not to a teacher or path or method, responsibility to yourself. You may feel the urge to turn the encounter into structure, to make the other person a guide, a mentor, a role. Sometimes that's appropriate. Of 10, it's a defense, because defined roles create safety. They soften the rawness. They reduce the demand to stand alone. But many who are deeply awake refuse these roles, not out of distance, but out of clarity. They recognize that what you seek in them cannot be given. It must be recognized where you are. This refusal can feel frustrating, even unfair, but it carries a quiet message. Stop looking outward for what is already present. From here, nothing forces your next step. You can return to old patterns. You can protect familiar identities. You can live as if nothing happened. Or you can let the encounter keep working on you. This means listening differently, questioning your choices, noticing where fear still decides, seeing where. Comfort has replaced truth. The encounter doesn't judge these things, it reveals them. And revelation alone does not change a life. Choice does. This is why such meetings are rare and precious. Most people never experience them. They move through life without having their assumptions disrupted, their limits exposed, their possibilities expanded. If you have, something has already begun. Where? For it becomes a burden or a breakthrough. Depends on what you do next. Stay honest. Stay open. Stay willing to not know. And let what was revealed continue its quiet work. Because once awareness touches awareness, the path forward is no longer theoretical, it's lived.